you, and something I hope that you'll find interesting, and it's the dance. We talked this morning about cosmic sex, and we're making that on a special tape. Part 1 and 2 is going to be on one tape, and Joni Schultz is going to design a cover for it. So it should be interesting because there's a lot of, not only is there a lot of interest in that, it's the part of life. It is the aspect of all life. And when you bring it into the spiritual realm of understanding it through Bibles and ancient scriptures, it becomes very meaningful. But there's something else that we'll check tonight that is also a very meaningful thing to the ancients who involved themselves in religious exercises and spiritual exercises, and that is the dance. The dance. Very interesting thing. Because everything that, is religious or spiritual is not confined to paper, circles and crosses. And this symbol is a beautiful symbol that is used and has been used through most ancient times to convey a deep spiritual truth, and that's the dance. Let us identify the Greek goddess of mythology who is responsible for looking over the universe and making sure that there is music and dance. And I'll take this over here so I can spell her name. And it is a she, and this is how you spell her name. Terpsichore, and her name is Terpsichore. And she is the goddess of the dance, and she looks over the whole world to make sure that people are dancing all over the world. And you can find that, as I said, there's so many interesting things that you can find in books in reference to mythology, etc. And that's very interesting because to this day you'll hear somebody refer to a good dancer as a Terpsichorean. Oh boy, he's just 100% in the art of Terpsichore. Well, Terpsichore is the Greek goddess who looks down on the earth to make sure that everybody is dancing. So we go on from there. In our culture, dancing basically is a source of amusement. It's an element of sex appeal for some people. For instance, if you're into the ballet, you are considered a cultured person. And a lot of people go to those things just so people can see them and think they're cultured. They're really not necessarily particularly interested in it, but you'll go to the ballet, and it'll make you look like you're cultured. Or you get involved in the wild frenzy of a rock and roll dance, or whatever that is, whatever it may be, and that's a way to work off your inhibitions and so on. But unfortunately, all of these things that have such a meaningful expression, religion, for instance, considers much of it satanic. Why? I don't know. But it's satanic or it's evil, because people are dancing and so forth and so on. And they have a problem with it. But that's where we get it back into the spiritual realm. It becomes a very beautiful thing. When it gets into the hands of people, then it can become sinful, if you would, and if you want to use that word. Today, most religious denominations frown on dancing. But to the ancient cultures, it was an essential part of religious celebration. And that's what we want to look at. And of course, we'll think of the Greek goddess Terpsichore looking down on all of this, One of the most inspiring dances that I think we could relate to spirituality that you might be able to think of, and I know all of you have seen, are the dances of the American Indian. The dances of the American Indian as they circle the fire, which actually was a recreation of the magnificent cosmos circling the sun in the center, and the cosmos and all of its planets and associated types of things circling the sun, and that's the dance of the American Indian. And still today, the most primitive countries in the world, dance is considered an expression to God. And what was really the point of it all was that as a person began to dance, they were considered getting into harmony with the expression of the universe. Dancing was part of the harmony. It symbolized music, which was symbolizing God, and a harmonious relationship with God. So you would actually, you would dance and you would be in harmony with the universe. And they would lay aside their personality, lay aside the ego, and get in harmony with others. And let's see what we mean then by the harmony expressed in dance. This is the important thing, and this is the negative thing that many of you have to digest coming out of religion, Christianity, and other forms of religion. Man, women, is not some kind of a hapless sinner dumped down into a cruel world by some absurd God for the purpose of preparing yourself to go someplace else. That's basically the unit of thought, that you're nothing but some kind of worthless thing dumped on this planet and wasting your time away until this God gets his ego settled down so you can go someplace else. Man is not a chance happening or a byproduct of some cosmic explosion. So then what is the purpose? We're part of the universe, part of nature, part of God, part of the harmony, and as such we flow together in a harmony. And we flow together in a harmony with each other. We flow together into a harmony with the animals. We flow together into a harmony with the trees, with the leaves, with flowers, with the ocean. If we're in sync with nature, we do, but unfortunately, most, especially in this culture, we're not. We have no relationship to it. Religion falls so short because it is not in harmony with anything. It reads a book. That's all it ever does is read a book. And people get up and talk, but there's no harmony. You know, you come into a harmony when you go into meditation. You go into meditation with the music and with the sounds and with Om or Myoho, whatever it is. You find a place where you melt into a harmony. And the reason of this is because the body, your physical body, is a temple. And it's a temple of the Spirit, the temple of the Holy Spirit. See? But just as the dance, we have degraded the body as to something that is to be shunned. We got a lot of that out this morning. We love it. We said a lot of things this morning that were quite mature, and I don't believe they're said in too many churches. And we took something that is sex, and we get into the deep parts of sex and sexual expressions, and all of a sudden we raised it up into a level because we brought it up into a God level. We raised it up into something extremely beautiful. But in the rest of the way, whether it be the dance, whether it be the human body, whether it be sex, that which is given to us in joy by the Creator, we turn into something dirty. And there's no harmony then. Where's the harmony? There's no harmony in a solitary instrument. If you're going to take the Boston Pops and you have one guy blowing a flute, that's not the Boston Pops. There has to be a harmony. There has to be all different kinds of instruments. And all these instruments have to play in unison. And they all have to come together, and they each have their little part to play. And if everybody does this in harmony and in sync with the other, then there's a symphony. Otherwise, there can't be. And when you consider the human body and the shame connected with it, and then the act of the dance that so many Christians fear. See? But know something. The ancient people found no shame, no fear in either sex, the human body, or the dance. Everything was beautiful. Everything was a creative expression of nature. And let's take a look at the Bible. And in an instance, I'll say something about King David amongst the Philistines. And he was bringing back to Israel. He had gone for the ark, and he's bringing back to Israel the traditions and ritual dances. And he was a shocking figure to people. Take a look at this with me. Go to page 270 in those little Bibles. And it's interesting for you to have one and to see this. The rest of you go to 2 Samuel, okay? The book of Samuel, 2 Samuel. And if you'll turn to 2 Samuel chapter 6, you'll see that David is bringing the ark. It's 2 Samuel chapter 6 and verse 12, okay? The Lord had blessed the ark, and David was bringing the ark back to Israel, and everybody, it was a great time, okay? If you'll then look, you'll see something. As he's bringing this back, it says in page 270, 2 Samuel chapter 6, verse 12, he's bringing the ark back. 2 Samuel chapter 6, verse 14, and look what it says. And David danced before the Lord with all his might, and David was girded with a linen ephod. You know what that is? Like a G-string. That's all he had. It looks like something like Candy Bar would wear down at the Trocadero in Philadelphia in the old days, or whatever they wear now. That's what he was running. And can you imagine this guy? He's running down the street. That's all he's got on, or they call it a jock strap nowadays. And it looks like that, and this is what he's jumping up and down. Woohoo! He's kicking up, he's having a heck of a time. I mean, this is, this is what they call Jesus, oh, son of David. They never said, hey, this relative of yours was, quite a character. He could care less. But this is basically what you're looking at. Look at that again. He was dancing with all his might, and all he had on was this little jock strap. Can you imagine this? And it's in the Bible, say. And he was having a great time. But watch what happens here. Here's Saul's daughter. Her name is Michal. M-I-C-H-A-L, Michal, okay? And look what it says in verse 16. And the ark of the Lord came into the city of David. Michal, Saul's daughter, looked through the window and saw King David, leaping and dancing, and she despised him in her heart. You bum, you! Look at this. What kind of a thing is it? Because if you saw what goes on today in religious circles, what would happen? They'd all be there with their vestments on and coming up the aisle, and then some guy be sprinkling water and another guy be singing a song, or they'd have suits and ties on, but they would be here's a guy with a jockstrap on coming down in the middle of the thing, carrying the ark of the Lord, and he's dancing he's in a frenzy. And Michal looks out, and in other words, she couldn't stomach this guy. And this isn't Charlie from the local New Age. This is King David, see. He's having a great time. Now, look here. In verse 20, Michal confronts him. Okay? Then David returned to bless his household, and Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out and said, "How glorious was the king of Israel today, who uncovered himself in the eyes of the handmaids of the servants, as one of the vain fellows shamelessly uncovered himself." Now here's King David getting what for from this little girl, because she saw him in this rather obscene demonstration. And he had no clothes on, and he's dancing with all his might down the street leading God. He's got God in a box, and this is the way he's leading him down the street. You got this? You seen this thing here? Okay, that's pretty interesting. But David's reply is more shocking than what you've seen here. David's reply is a shocker. Look at verse 21. And David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord which chose me, and before all his house to appoint me. Therefore will I play before the Lord." And look what he says in verse 22. "And I will be more vile than this, and I will be more base in mine own sight, and of the maidservants which you have been spoken of in your honor." In other words, kid, you ain't seen nothing yet. All I got to get rid of is my little tutu, and I'll really dance up the street, because if you think this is vile, if you think this is disgusting, if you think this is obscene, you ain't seen nothing yet. Do you see where he said that? I'm going to be more vile, and I'm going to be worse than you could ever think. See, in other words, I'll be just as vile as I want to be. How do you like that? You would have thought he'd say, "Oh, my God, oh, go to confession," or, "Oh, ask forgiveness of the Lord." He says, "Get out of here. I'm going to get more vile than this. You ain't seen nothing yet, kid. Watch me go." Woo-hoo! And he got his leg up and off he went. Why? Why is this? Because that was the dance. People were not consumed in the guilt. People were not consumed in making things dirty that were not dirty. Dirt and filth is made by whoever decides it's dirty and filthy. See, they make the rules, they make the regulations of dirt and filth, and certainly David didn't see that way. So David goes on in verse 22, and he says, "If you think I've been vile, I'm going to be more vile. And if you think I'm base, in other words, I'm the lowest kind of, scuzzball, I'm going to be even more base. I'm going to be worse. I'm going to just do whatever I want to do." So David had obviously seen these dances in the other cultures, and because what he performed was actually the circle dance of the ancient mysteries, and this is something that we'll get in and I'll share with you. The circle dance of the ancient mysteries is portrayed on page 232 of your Bible, and it's in the book of Judges, on Judges chapter 21, page 232. But there you see the dance. There you see the difference. How many do you think you could find of evangelists or priests or ministers if they'll take their clothes off, put their little jockstrap on, and go dancing down the street carrying the Lord or the Holy Communion? That would be, they put them in jail. But I'm telling you, this was done by King David. Okay? This is the one who wrote all the Psalms. This is the one in which they said to Jesus, "Oh, son of David." This is what this guy was doing. And when he was caught doing it, he says, "Ha ha, tough on you. I'm going to do worse." And so, "Ha ha, what are you going to do now? What can you do?" That's worse than that. Because there was no, in any way, shape, or form, he didn't consider that filthy. He didn't consider that dirty. He considered this an expression, a frenzied expression of love to God. But that is not accepted here today. That is not accepted in this culture. I would have a hard time with that. I really would. I probably would be a little bit of a shocker myself, and you know. But you know, what I'm trying to do is show you that our culture has made sinful and dirty those things which at one time in cultures that were a lot closer to God than we were certainly not sinful and not dirty in any way, shape. Let's take a look at Judges chapter 21 and verse 21, okay? Judges chapter 21. And see and behold, if the daughters of Shiloh come out to dance in dances, and come ye out of the vineyards, and catch you every man his wife of the daughters of Shiloh, and go to the land of Benjamin. And that's what they used to do. It was about, did you ever play the chair dance, and you know, you'd get up and sit and whatever, the last one? Basically, the circle dance, this is almost a marriage dance here, see? They would go out and they'd all dance in a circle, and they'd find a lovely maiden, and they would dance off into the forest or wherever they go. And off they would go. But these were part of the religious expression. Because why? Because religion to those people was live. See, what you have here is you have a false religion. How could this be religion? People come into these mausoleums and sit and read these books and Bibles and sing these old songs from the 1700s, and everybody is bored. Nobody likes being there. Nobody believes any of it, and you try to equate it with God. No, these people got up and they had a dance, and they really went at it, and they got really into a feeling that, hey, this is an expression of life. This is what God is. God is joy. I am joy. Then I dance with the Lord and whatever. And I mean, they really felt it. And you know, it's like they say a lot of people who jog nowadays can get themselves into a meditative state. Well, brother, that's exactly what would happen to a lot of these people. You can dance yourself right into a meditation. But these dances actually were symbols of the motions of the planets moving around the sun. Basically, that's where they were. And David, as he leaped and circled the ark, was actually playing out the movement of a planet, you know. And as you study this deeper, you can find this. Now, let me tell you of another dance which is extremely beautiful. I had a tape of it once, and Joe, I wish I had it now, that I'd have you a copy for everybody. But it's the dance of the whirling dervish. And that is a meditation of magnificent proportion. And these men, they wear these long billowing white skirts and these little black, like turbans on their head. And they all come up to the holy man, and they have a prayer. And as they leave him, they just leave and they just begin like this. And they go in circles, and for an hour and a half, they'll just dance in these circles. And the skirt will hoop out and billow out, and maybe 7 or 8 of them will be out on the floor dancing in these circles. And the music becomes very hypnotic. The dance becomes very hypnotic. It's the great movement of the universal spheres, everything working in a circle, you know, even like the Kundalini we talked of this morning. There's an apocryphal Bible. In the lost books of the Bible, you can find one called the Acts of John. And the disciples are described as holding one another's hands at the conclusion of the Last Supper. And you would think, and everybody was very maudlin and very down, but they all got together, they held one another's hands, and they would swing in great circles around Jesus. And this is what John said happened. They'd make a ring around Jesus, who stands in the center, and everything that Jesus would sing out, the disciples would say, Amen, Amen, as the planet circled around the sun, with Amen being the name of the sun god. So this is something that's not in the Bible as you have it, but in the apocryphal Bible, one of the books that didn't make it in, it says this is what happened at the Passover, at that Last Supper. They all had this circle dance around Jesus, with Jesus being the sun at the center, and the disciples representing the planets. In the Buddha Karita, that's K-A-R-I-T-A, which is a book of Buddha, it says, and with the dances of the heavenly nymphs, the palace shone like Mount Karista. The dances of the heavenly nymphs are the higher activities of the soul. And these things that you occupy in deep consciousness where God dwells. Look at page 851, if you would, for a moment. And look at the book of Luke. Luke chapter 15. Luke chapter 15 And let's go on page 851, Luke chapter 15, and verse 25. This is the story of the prodigal son. And of course, this prodigal son story is a mythological story. It has a great mystical story to tell you. And it says in verse 25, "Now his elder son was in the field, and he came and drew nigh to the house. He heard music and dancing." Okay, part of that, that's the New Testament. Music and dancing. So there's great joy, great expression of joy through that which is the human body taking part in this particular dance. The intellect, see, the older son becomes aware of the presence of new life through the harmony of music and through the harmony of dancing. Okay? And speaking of the harmony that comes to one of virgin consciousness, I want to share something with you that Jeremiah covers in Jeremiah chapter 31. It's on page 649, if you can find it with me. I want you to look at this for just a minute. Okay? Jeremiah chapter 31. Okay, Jeremiah chapter 31, page 649. Look at verse 4. Now this is talking about you. Understand this. This verse is talking about you. It's talking about that inner part of you, that conscious part of you, the divine mind of you. "Again I will build you, and you shall be built, O Virgin of Israel." You see that? "O Virgin of Israel. You shall again be adorned with tabrets which are jewels, and shall go forth in the dances of them that make merry." See, everything basically came out of fruition and was expressed in these dances, and was expressed in music, and was expressed in song. "And I will build thee, and you shall be built, O Virgin of Israel," which is referring to that he who or she who dwells in this virgin consciousness and then finds that this resurrection, this newness, the recreation of the temple within, that would bring one into harmony with God in the dancing of the universe and the dancing of the spirits. So the dance, then, as we're covering it tonight, is a symbol of the movement of your inner spirit, and your inner spirit must experience a harmony of God's celestial music. Remember what we showed you this morning, and it was very interesting. The dance or the music came, remember what we were talking about, Neil Diamond, "You are the sun, I am the moon." Well, in this particular case, if the earth gets in the way, it blocks that which is the light of the sun, and so then the moon is dark. But if there is nothing to block here, then there is no darkness. Then the direct light from the sun comes from the right side to your intellect, to your carnal mind, to the left side, and the light goes on. And then you become in harmony. If there's anything in the center blocking it, there's trouble. And many people experience health problems, family problems, financial problems, all kinds of problems. The world experiences it in ways of war and hostilities and people starving. It's because there is a blockage between what is true and what is right and that which is the light which comes from God. There is blockage in the center. And you know, it doesn't make any difference if it's President Bush or the Pope or who it is. If that blockage exists there, they can put up a wonderful front on the outside, but their work is going to be filled with all kinds of trouble. And this is something that each one of you have got to really consider and think about. If that blockage is there, no matter what you set out to do, it's going to fail. Because you're only going to get so far with it, and then all of a sudden the collapse will come. Because it has to. It has to. There's nothing to hold it together. Doesn't make any difference if it's a person. Doesn't make any difference if it's a job. Doesn't make any difference what it is. The frustrations will come because the blockage is there. And that's why it's important, even in the confines of your own house, that whoever, you know, as you dwell together, that you try to bring people to understand that this has to be open, because if there is a blockage with somebody else that you're dwelling with, it's going to affect you. That'll affect you. That's exactly the way. You can say, "Oh, I live in this world and I'm saved," but so what? If the rest of the world has this blockage, nothing is being accomplished. And that's what our job is here to do, is to stop this blockage and allow people to flow in harmony with the universe. You say it in here, and you can sit. I'm not going to name any names, but you sit and you see people. When they're flowing in the harmony, you see them. Everything seems to go well. But when that blockage is set up, sooner or later, all hell breaks loose. when things go bad. And it will happen. So here then, when I will build thee, and you shall be built, O virgin, this is what the Bible calls joy unspeakable and full of glory. It is that covering that we call the covering of God. It is the jewels of his kingdom, which are the divine thoughts which come from the right side. And the dancing with the universe that you experience in the realm of spirit. When you come in meditation, and in those brief moments when you're able to find an ecstasy and release yourself into higher realms, at that point you're experiencing that joy unspeakable. Because you can't explain it to anybody. Who are you going to explain it to? It's impossible to explain that it is your experience. So the dance is a symbol of the movement of your inner spirit. And it's the inner spirit dance that you've got to experience in the harmony of God's celestial music. And it's the music of love which moves across the cosmos, that you've got to be willing to move with it, or it will crumble you. It is that stone that will either fall on you if you don't move with it in a proper way. But Jesus has asked Christians to enter into meditation. He's asked you. He's asked people, I mean, empty chairs, whatever it may be. He says, I want you to do this. I've asked you, we have asked you. For thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years, there have been voices of Krishna, of Buddha, of Zoroaster, of Jesus, of Muhammad, or whomever, and they've asked and they've asked and they've written in books, and people read the books and read the books and read the books and don't do it. And yet they make up legends of all of these things that they saw and they're going to do. They made up rules and regulations that are nowhere in the books, and they've said all of these various things. But what did Jesus say? And I want you to read it with your own eyes. Page 787, Matthew chapter 11. Look what Jesus said. Matthew chapter 11, page 787. And this is where we have stayed out and we have gone into the structure of literalism of the Bible. We have stayed away from that which is the meditation. Matthew 11, and if you go with me to verse 17, we have piped unto you, and you have not danced. We have mourned unto you, and you have not lamented. In other words, he's saying you haven't cooperated, you haven't done anything. What does God care? Wherever the God is, what does he care if you come and read a Bible? So who cares? Who cares whether you ever read the Bible? What's the big deal? Who cares whether you go to church? See? But he says the important thing is you've got to dance. And the dance is ecstasy. The dance is flowing with the harmony of this rhythm within it. He says, we piped, we played the music, and you said no. Go find them. They won't do it. The music is meditation. And they say, don't do it. And he says, if I piped and you wouldn't dance. You wouldn't have any part in this. You've not responded to the inner music because we like the outer sounds. As I wrap this up in talking about the dance and how it's applied mystically, and of course we've only skimmed the surface of it. Sometimes you turn on the television. Television today comes under a lot of criticism, but it has a lot of tremendous things that you never ever saw before from some of these A&E networks, Discovery networks, things like that. But turn them on sometime, you'll see these different cultures in the dances, whether the dances come out of Thailand or whether they come out of the African continent or the Egyptian continent or India. They all have these dances, and in a quite different style, except for the American Indian. Their dances tell a spiritual story and a relationship with God. But I want to talk to you about, just a minute, that dance of the whirling dervish. There's an interesting story surrounding a fellow who actually started it, and his name was Rumi. He was a guru, Rumi. And he was the first whirling dervish. And he became enlightened. In other words, what he did, and this is interesting, he found that he became one with the universal energy of the circle, and he followed this instinctively. And what he did, Rumi danced for 36 hours in a circle. And do you know what happened? He disappeared. They never knew where he went. The last anybody saw him, he was spinning in a circle, and he just disappeared in the circle, and he was gone. Disappeared. Would you do me a favor? Would you just check see that? And so that's the last. I said, where's Reuben? Well, he's over at the church, Les, and he disappeared off the face of the earth. Now you say, oh, that's ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. When I was a little boy, I remember we lived up in East Orange, New Jersey. And in East Orange, we had a fellow who was a close friend of the family. His name was Benny. We called him Uncle Benny. And Uncle Benny went one day, and I was there. I don't remember. Some things I was only a little kid. And I must have been 7 years old. Well, Uncle Benny was a lot of fun. This goes way back. And we said, and Uncle Benny said, I'm going down to get the paper. And I said, we were playing a game, a board game. And my father said, okay, Benny, get down here. I said, I want to get the paper. I'll be right back. I'm going down to get the paper. That had to be 51 years ago. He never come back. Never came back. Never. He disappeared off the face of the earth. Nobody ever knows where he went. Uncle Benny went for the paper 51 years ago. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and he never came back. And his clothes was in our house. He didn't have any clothes. He didn't have nothing. He just sucked into the ozone. They had the FBI, the missing persons. Everybody looked for Benny, and he's gone. Off the face of the earth. And his wallet he left it. He just walked down. He was only going 2 blocks down to the corner to get the newspaper. Never came back. So when you hear about Rumi dancing in a circle and disappearing, yes, you've heard it. I think in your family you had a Benny, didn't you? No. Come here now. Come up so you can say, who did you? You had somebody.
We never had a Benny.
But he disappeared.
Yeah, but my mother had a brother, and this was before she was married, and same thing. He went out to the store in Brooklyn. They lived, and he never came back.
Yeah.
Yeah, they never, and there were a lot of policemen in the family, and they tried to find him, and nobody could ever
Now
find him.
Yeah, I'll tell you
And
something.
I bet if you asked your families, it probably happened in yours too, and you might
I
not
bet you
know
if you check, you'll find somebody. Did you have one, Eileen? Come here. Come on up for a minute. No, I'd like to hear the story because it's interesting.
But
Nobody ever talks about these things, but there are people. That's all right. Take it. Now, come on, now, just look over here. Tell us about yours.
It's simply that I had an uncle, and he was married, and he just disappeared one day. Nobody ever found out what it was. That's all.
Never came back.
He lived in New York City. Never came back. That was probably 50 years ago. More.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. So there you know what we could do, now that we've touched on something, how about you folks on television? Do you have some interesting stories of Uncle Benny's in your family that, went for the paper? But it happens much more than you think. And we don't quite know what it is. I mean, today people would say spaceships. I don't know if a spaceship scooped Uncle Benny up on his way to get the newspaper. But there are many, many. Now here you have, in a small group tonight with 15 people, and there are that many, but you have 3 stories in 3 individual families and just a few people of people in the families who went out one day and never came back. Disappeared off the face of the earth. So I'll bet you if you check in your families, and if you have one, drop me a line, would you, and let us know about your favorite story. And I'll bet you we'll get some buttes of people who disappeared from families and never came. So anyhow, our friend Rumi was a whirling dervish, and now I can't do this too much because I get nauseous. But this guy was dancing like this for 36 hours. And you imagine maybe the last guy was sitting there. Yes? Yeah. Kids, well, I'm going to talk about it. But can you imagine, say maybe the last guy sitting there, and he's playing his drum, boom, 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 and he's on overtime. He says, is this guy ever going to stop? And he's where'd he go? All there's left there is a turban. What? Hey, Roo? Yeah, because he looks down, but he looks up, he's gone. Well, all right. Well, that's a legend. But it isn't. The only thing is with Christianity, the only thing that carries weight with us, there could be the ascension, or miracles can happen, and miracles can happen in churches, and all these are wonderful. But this guy's spinning in a circle. He couldn't have disappeared because he's not of our group. But he did. Off he went. That might have been Uncle Benny. I don't know. He might have come back as Uncle Benny. Yours is Uncle. What was yours? Uncle Harold. What was yours, Eileen? Cousin Brucey? I don't know. A French name. Pierre. He took off. Who knows what happened to him? Wait a minute. Now, you got to come up here. You can't do this because we're on television. Come on. This is your chance, Al. Come on. You haven't been on television before. This is Al Cruz. Go ahead.
No, the dancing of Rumi, doesn't that also have something to do with clearing yourself and giving up all resistance?
Yeah, the whirling dervish is it's a deep meditative dance. I mean, try it sometime.
Yeah, and then Jesus, didn't he also have that within, like when he he was there and then he wasn't there?
Yeah, he would disappear.
He could just become part
There
of
was a story. Who was it? Philip in the Bible was translated. He disappeared. Yeah, sure. And these are things. But you can see. This is the point. Whether you be Rumi and you're going to disappear. If Al Bianchi, who's on vacation, was here, he could tell you of how this could happen. Because what happens is you go from the beta cycles per second of the brain into alpha, and then you can go from alpha clear into theta and then delta, and you bring this down to such cycles that you're not even there. So I mean, all you are actually is things that are clashing with each other. Everything is moving here that looks stationary. Molecules are moving, and if you get this up into a different frequency, it's gone. So this guy could have been playing the drums. Hey, Rumi, go, hey, dig it, man, crazy. Where are you at, man? Where Rumi? And they said that the guy played the drums. Where'd he go? Dig it, man. He just blew out, right? Woo! Gone. And I mean, but see, it is scientifically possible that you could transcend from one frequency to another frequency. And that's just it. You can function at so many cycles per second. But if you get something going in a different cycles, it's gone. It's just like when you go to sleep sometime, those areas when sometimes you sleep, you just die. I mean, there's no dreams, there's nothing. You wake up, you think, God, you don't even know. You probably have gone all the way from theta through alpha to beta, right on to delta, down to 4 cycles per second, and you're gone. You're literally gone. You don't even know if your body is still there. You don't know. You could be like Uncle Henry or Rumi. I mean, you might have been, they might look at the bed and say, where's Janet? She was here. Check the bathroom. There ain't nobody. Because what happened? She's gone into delta and she's gone. The what? Well, I'm not an authority, but I would assume that your spirit, it is all based on a scientific principle. You go into a different cycles per second down to another cycles per second, and when you reach that, you're no longer in this particular plane. You may be all living, for instance, let's just play a game for a second. You may be living on channel 2. You can't see what's on channel 7. See? And if you translate your frequency, you may go up to channel 4. We say, where are you? Well, you're on channel 4. We're not tuned into that. We can't see. All we can see is channel 2. But what's going on in channel 4? If you have a television set, you can't see what's going on in channel 4 on channel 2. You have to tune to channel 4. Then you can see it. But when you tune to channel 4, then you can't see what's going on in channel 2. See, so you go, you tune. But I think you follow the point I'm trying to make. So what Rumi did, now the point I'm trying to make here is that what was taught to the children in the ancient days was that as the children, the first instinctive act a child will do is spin in a circle. All children spin in a circle. But the ignorance of the adult race is not familiar, and they'll stop them. Stop, you're going to get dizzy. Don't do that. You're going to throw. But yet what they're doing is what they have learned from God, and that is the cosmic dance. And so that every child is in one way or another a whirling dervish. And they do the same exact thing. You can see the little girls, little boys, and they're out like this, and they're whirling around. You can see a dog does it, or animals do it. They'll circle. You see, many times a dog, before it lies down, it'll circle in a circle. And that's the normal pattern of God. But the thing, how many churches have you ever seen where they said it's important for parents to allow their children to spin? They never said, because they don't know it. They're totally ignorant of it. They haven't the slightest idea what it's about. They have no idea. And yet it is important. Because as you let this child express himself, he's moving in a harmony with the cosmos, and it is something he has been taught by God. And he'll only stop it when his mom or dad interfere with the lessons that God gave us before we came here. And most of the time, that's what happens. Okay? Right. Now, come on. You can't do this when you're...
What you're saying is that you'll see kids and they'll always go one way, and a lot of times they try and stop and go the other way, and they can't because they're out of harmony.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's a good point. And so you learn. You just have to learn these things. And many of the little children in Thailand and all of these places, you see them, they get them all dressed up, you know, and they do these dances and the balance and the harmony. You see the elderly people, this Tai Chi, the elderly people in China, and they'll go like this, you know. And what they're doing, they're balance. It's all balance and all harmony with nature. And so dance was a very critical and very, very, very important thing. But what happened is beautiful. Because remember, as we started, we said that the dance is a spiritual expression. Dance is an expression of the Spirit. When we started here this evening, what's the first thing you saw? King David, down with a little jockstrap on, dancing in a frenzy in the Bible, because he was part of this magnificent celebration of God. See? Well, what did Rumi do? Rumi, you say, well, he disappeared. No, according to the ancients from the East, the dancer became the dance. The dancer became the dance. The person became the Spirit. We become the Christ. Do you see? That's the beauty of this. That's the beauty of this. And Rumi's message was love and dance. Love the whole existence so you can dance, and dance to abandon that existence of the flesh so you can live. So what do you do? Whether you physically dance, I don't know. But certainly you should spiritually dance. And you find yourself caressed by the music and the song as you lift yourself up into the celestial dance of meditation. So important to understand these things. And the more that you begin, like this morning, when we covered this morning, the more you realize that that's what God is. Cosmic sex, call it. So you prove that's what God is. You can't walk out the door and see a flower without seeing sex. You can't walk out the door and see a pussycat without seeing sex. You can't look at each other without seeing sex. Cosmic sex, the penetration of the light to that which is the earth, and then all springs to life. This is what God is. Dance, this is what God is. Joy, fun. See, to me, if you go to Atlantic City and see 10,000 people, senior citizens with a roll of nickels or whatever they are, and they're all laughing and they're all sitting down and having lunch, that's God. But if you come and you see them all sitting, cowering in these churches, singing these ancient songs and just modeling their life away, that's God has nothing to do with that. Has nothing to do with that. That's why Jesus just had contempt for that kind of thing. He stayed outside. He stayed outside with the earth and in the mountains and in the trees, and he was in harmony. So it was interesting, and it's an interesting thing that we covered in the dance. Okay? Well, thank you for sharing.